Man, I really think this next update is going to be one of the best in this game's history. Being able to ride a ghast is just so silly and so memeable, but I feel like it's also going to be so useful, especially for us builders. So I finally got the path in. Goes all the way from the village all the way to the statue. Let me grab one of the potions from my speed potion merchant right here. About halfway across. Let's get there real quick. And there is the statue that we built in the last episode, Lady Justice, to commemorate, of course, the milestone of 1,000 subscribers. And man, I'm really proud of this build. I think it came out great. Over here by the nature sanctuary, I removed all the trees because I decided I want to do custom trees. I'm not going to do that today. I'm going to do that another time. Once I get into 1.21.5 and I get the leaf litter and everything. You know, it does kind of look nice when it's not obstructed by trees, but it also kind of maybe looks a little bland. I think I'm definitely going to put trees in though. I think it'll look nice and have a nice custom forest. It'll be a really cool atmosphere. And you know, one of the original reasons I made this build was not only to be a nature sanctuary, but was to be a bee farm. And really, I didn't want honey. I wanted candles because I actually like to build interiors in this game. And so I need a lot of candles. And I'm going to be building interiors later in this episode, so I need candles. But the other half of candles is, of course, string. Let me take this rail down. But yeah, anytime I needed to go mining, I would come mine in the caves around the nature sanctuary and hopefully find a mine shaft, which I eventually did. And then I eventually found a cave spider spawner. So yeah, I'm going to turn this into a grinder. I'm going to get a bunch of string. It's a bit slow getting up, but you know, it's a fun ride. So. Oh yeah, that is satisfying. And this is nice too because it's a good XP farm as well, so I can kind of get good healing on my tools. Goodbye. This is the system. So get all the loot here. Okay. And I've finished putting in the rails for both tracks. Oh, that's not lit though. Okay, get lit. Now it's lit. And so minecart with the chest. I fill in with all the loot. Press that button and off it goes. And then I can take this and off it goes. Okay, and what should be happening is that the minecart with the chest is sitting on top. Yes, dumping out all the loot. And once it's done, this redstone will send it back down. Okay, I think it's almost there. Let's see. Yep, perfect. And that will go all the way back down and it'll be ready for the next time I use that. It's not that I'm tired of looking at you guys, but I think it's time I give you a new home, or at least a new temporary home. And what better place than the brand new graveyard? Yeah, that's fitting. That is a lot more fitting. A bit morbid, but it's fitting. Okay, so it's a brand new day for me in real life. And all the mods I use have been upgraded to 1.21.5. So I'm in the brand new version of the game, which means I lied, or I didn't lie, but I kind of semi-lied. I said I was going to be building interiors today. I was going to work on some builds over here. I'm not going to do that. I am now going to build the trees that I mentioned because I have, or I will have, all the leaf litter and everything to be able to decorate the custom forest the way I want to. Of course, this update also added a bunch of new natural things, a bunch of new nature, the wildflowers and the cactus flowers, the bushes, and of course the leaf litter. So I got to go get all those things so I can add them to the nature sanctuary, of course. And I also want to check this out because leaves now drop particles. All the leaves drop particles, right? And I wanted to see what that would look like in the nature sanctuary. Does it only do it if it's on a tree? Oh, no, it does. No. Okay, that is pretty cool. It's not as much as I would have thought, but that is a neat feature. Actually, yeah, its subtlety is pretty nice. And I built one of these. It's just a, whatever. it's just a simple flower farm with the bone meal underneath. And so, yeah, I can get magenta dye and alliums. It's just that bone meal is so, it's not hard to get, but for me, it's kind of difficult to get. I don't have a really good bone meal farm. And of course, I have to pay for everything in my world. I don't have to, but that's just the way I like to play. Okay, so I'm going to go try and find all these new things. I know I can just smelt leaves and get leaf litter, but that's kind of boring. So I'm on my way back home, and man, isn't that cool? Isn't that something? I don't really know how it looked from other angles other than the front, because you're not really supposed to look at it from different angles, but you know, it doesn't look too bad. It's a nice beacon to have in the world because it's so large. I saw it from so far away, and I was like, okay, I'm not lost. Okay, wildflowers can go next to the pink petals, of course. Leaf litter I will kind of spam everywhere, but for now I can just place it next to the saplings in the tree area. The bush can go right next to the fern and grass. Okay, that makes sense. And then the firefly bushes, I'm thinking I will also kind of put everywhere for the particles, but they can also exist right around here. And you know what, why not? Let's do one right there too. And then for all the desert stuff, oh, okay. So, yeah, that is how they grow, isn't it? They just grow on top of tall cacti. Okay, so that's how you farm them. But whatever, I went and got my own. I was going to put it on the too tall one here, but I guess if they can grow on 3 tall one, we'll just leave that there. So that's represented. The dry grass, can we fit it in right here? And short grass right there. And here. Why not? Okay. And with all that, the nature sanctuary is updated to 1.21.5. Here is the sanctuary at nighttime with the firefly bush particles. That is really neat. Again, very subtle, but it goes a long way, I think. Really, oh, and even we got all kinds of particles in this build. Really nice. So it is a new episode, so that means I have to get a new building up here in the village. Last time I did the sea pickle farm shop right there. I think I'm going to do this build right here. I have no idea what the farm / shop is going to be. Hello. Kind of running out of ideas because I want all the flower and nature stuff to be by the sanctuary, so I don't know. But yeah, gonna get this up real quick and I'll be right back. All right, here we have it. The newest builds, kind of boring from that side. But yeah, I did decide it was going to be a sugarcane farm / shop. The interior is kind of meh. I think these colors clash, but what do I know? But yeah, really, let me show you downstairs is what matters. So down here with the vines and the glow lichen, which I moved, I've added a sugarcane farm. This one looks like it should be going any second here. And really what I want is bone meal. So if I clog this chest, it'll start overflowing into a composter and create bone meal. So I'm just about ready to start getting to work on the forest, but there's one more thing I have to do, which I do in every episode, and that is build a statue. Right, so every single episode I build a statue to commemorate every single subscriber that I have. And I take this time to ask you to please like and subscribe because it helps out a lot, and that way I can build more statues in your honor. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope you stick around. Isn't he so cute? I mean, look at this guy. I'm really happy with this one. This is one of my favorites so far. So this is the sub 2,388 statue, which is just crazy to say, but I'm grateful for each and every one. Yeah, he's kind of inspired by, I was actually kind of trying to design the Dark Goblin from Clash Royale. You get a better view of his head and his hair there from down here in the sanctuary. But anyway, it's time to finally get started on the forest here. I don't really have a plan. I just have the trees that I'm going to build. I'm just going to kind of go off feels and looks and vibes. Like I said, part of me is a bit torn because it does look really cool. I do think this is a real nice build and I don't want to cover it up with a bunch of trees. So maybe I'll try my best to keep some lines of sights alive. But yeah, it's time to start building some trees and hopefully I'm not too bad at that. There is just something about this game. I don't know the exact words or what it is exactly, but there's just something about this game. You know what it is. Floating bee's nest. But yeah, this is the forest. I'm going to walk through and give you the tour. I'm very happy with how this all turned out. I like this fallen log that brings us into the forest over this little pit here. Yeah, the way I did it with the trees was just 4 different schematics. They differ by height, so 4 different heights. And then just rotating them and placing the leaves differently in each one to give enough variety so it doesn't look too much like a pattern. I think that did the trick. And going into this project, I didn't want to spam grass around the forest. I knew I wanted it to be lush and crowded, but I didn't want to spam grass, but I kind of ended up doing that anyway. But it does work. So, you know, it's not too bad. I think it works. I have the bushes, of course, scattered about and the leaf litter. Pretty subtle, but it gets the trick done. Then I have these tents. So I built up more of the flower farms. And as indicated by the color on the tent, this is a red tulip and red dye farm, of course. I do think there's bone meal in here. So if I just do that, yeah, it'll start to work. And then turning it off is a little wonky. Sometimes it doesn't. Okay, that time it worked. Sometimes it doesn't always stop. You got to press it a couple times. Yeah, just put the seeds in to get more bone meal and you get a crap ton of flowers and you can turn it all into dye or whatnot. So I will come up with prices for these eventually. And I do want a villager in here too, just for aesthetic and for extra trading. That's supposed to be closed. Yeah, walking through the forest over here, you get to the sanctuary. It's a bit of a clearing. It's a bit more green and lush. I tried to, with the ground under trees, make it dirt, and then out where there are no trees and the sun can reach the ground, make it more green, make it more mossy. And I think that trick, you know, it works. It looks really nice. Again, it's kind of a subtle detail, but it really works. And then I was just putting in a bunch of details like fallen logs, firefly bushes. We'll look at this at nighttime eventually. The roots, you know, anything to just kind of detail out the forest and block lines of sights, because what I wanted was for you to really feel like you're in the forest. This is kind of a bad example because you can see out there, but I want it to be when you're in the forest, anywhere you look, you just kind of can't see out of the forest. So it really feels like you're lost in the woods. So there's some work to do there, but then over here is the hub where the minecart goes down. I don't have the minecart. Okay, it must have gone down there, but the minecart is there to go down to the spider farm, and I have everything there. And then this is interesting. I wanted to show this off. So from doing this project and changing all the ground, I have gotten a lot of dirt. And, you know, that's just something that happens in Minecraft. You get a lot of dirt. And if you choose to keep it and hoard it like I do, you run out of storage space. So I came up with this solution. It's not really a solution. It's just more storage. And I didn't really come up with it at all. It's not that innovative. It's just a silo with a bunch of barrels and hoppers. And up here is the input, and you just throw dirt in there and it funnels its way through. And comes all the way back down here, and you can just take out dirt and it'll fill back up. And it kind of makes sense to have a giant storage space for dirt. So if I ever need a lot of dirt, I can come to the forest and come to my silo. And I think I'm going to do this with other blocks like stone. And then I would just kind of scatter these silos around the world along pathways and in different villages and whatnot. That way you can always get those common resources in bulk. And this way I have the orange tulip stall and the path loops around to the back here. And over here I wanted to show off, this is a bone meal farm. It's also a pumpkin farm. When this chest is full, there it goes, getting some pumpkins. When that chest is full and it overflows, it starts turning into bone meal and of course crafting into bone blocks. And I can show off there is a moss farm where all the product is being composted into bone meal. So it's a really good bone meal farm. I needed this for all the flower farms, all the, please, Lord, please. I needed all the bone meal for, well, for everything. You know, all the grass, which I hand placed, by the way, because you can't bone meal the moss without getting all the moss stuff. And, you know, replicating bushes and everything. Just needed a crap ton of bone meal. And this is good timing because nighttime is here, and I sprinkled in a bunch of firefly bushes. Some are out, and others are underneath the ground because you still get the particle effect, and I wanted there to be constant fireflies when you're walking through. Isn't that something? The firefly bush, man, is a really neat feature. I hope Mojang adds... Oh my goodness. Yeah, not exactly mob proof. Okay, that's too close for comfort. Okay, there should... Jeez. Alright, when I was testing this earlier, there were lots of fireflies. Can I... But yeah, the firefly bushes are really cool. I hope Mojang adds more things like that, that add some kind of atmosphere or something else you can do to your builds other than place blocks, if that makes sense. I think it's really cool. But anyway... that is that. I think that is going to do it for this episode. So, if you tuned in, thanks for tuning in. Be good, and have a great rest of your day.